This is my personal diary. It's intended to serve as an explanation and a validation of organized harassment, something we sometimes refer to as gang stalking. Stepping outside for my morning run that day, I had an experience that was so terrifying that I wet my pants. This was an experience that would define my life for the next 35 years. Now, before I begin to tell my story, we need to confront the issue of credibility, don't we? I mean, am I just one more wacko on the internet where there's no shortage of wackos? I propose two ways to establish my credibility. The first is by my medical reports. The second is by my resume or my curriculum vitae, which demonstrates the confidence that others have placed in me over the past 35 years. Let's begin with the fact that I passed the bar exam and the CPA exam. The bar exam was 3 days long, over 15 hours of testing during that 3 days. The CPA exam was about the same, 16 hours of testing. After I got my credentials and began practicing, it became clear to me after the targeting began that I would never be a financial success. Something always seemed to get in the way. So I had to ask myself, were there other ways to fulfill my life? In my case, I grew up in a wealthy family. Beyond paying for my education, the wealth never brought us happiness. Having experienced the broken promises of financial wealth, it was no longer quite as important to me. So I developed my life's bucket list independent of wealth. I mean, you can truly enjoy lawyering, as I do, and make a positive influence in the world without necessarily being wealthy. And that's what I focused on. And I'm a damn good accountant, but when you prepare a tax return for a family in South Philadelphia, that usually means staying for dinner after you collect the information for the tax return. And that means less money over the long run, but much more fun. The rest of my time I devoted to continuing education and volunteer work. Although I didn't make as much money, I met some amazing people, and I think I made a difference in the world. I absolutely hate television. Rather than waste away watching TV, I took classes. I took sailing classes, scuba classes, photography classes, cooking classes, writing classes, all of which brought as much fun to my life as making money. And I also had a chance to meet some amazing people. See, writers and photography buffs are entirely different people, and they're different from sailors, and they're different from piano players or scuba divers or tennis players. But I had a chance to meet all of these people who enriched my life. Now, I learned early on that I would encounter extreme stress, so I needed to keep in shape. So I've taken an hour out a day to exercise, and honestly, I've missed fewer than 10 days since 1986. And also, an added benefit, since I was in shape, I run a road race every year. My favorite is a 10K race, which is about 6 miles. I've run dozens of those. But I also did a full marathon and a half marathon and a few 5K races also. Now, I only managed to earn about 1/10 of my potential, and I rely on family and friends who understand my predicament. Personally, a loving spouse and family is worth $1 million. Now, don't misunderstand me. Life has not always been a lark, not earning money. I've been through smear campaigns, I've been through personal bankruptcy, and like most TIs, I've had to survive those as best I could. On paper, I actually own little or nothing. One thing I've noticed is that being a targeted individual brings you a little bit closer to the religion. Now I understand the saying that there are no atheists in foxholes. Now, I don't believe any one religion has all the answers, so I'm an active Unitarian Universalist. As far as my health, I have a primary physician and the typical number of specialists for a 70-year-old. I have a psychiatrist who treats me for ADDH and who thinks that otherwise I'm normal. And as I said before, I'm a fanatic about my daily 1-hour exercise. I do it whether there's rain, snow, heat, or cold. Most of the time, I just put on my sneakers and I hit the streets, but I also have a Silver Sneakers membership, and sometimes I go to the gym to work out. Now, my wife and I have been through marriage counseling, and it helped a lot, but we eventually graduated to the point we could embrace the fact that neither one of us is perfect, and we can still grow despite it. And we do. Now, I hope I've established my credibility. Many people have interacted with me and trusted me for the past 35 years, and I think that stands for something. And also, None of my doctors feel I need any additional medications or treatments. So why was I targeted? Well, the simplest explanation is that I'm an activist. I've written letters to the editor that have been published in the newspaper. I've engaged in demonstrations. I filed a formal police complaint when I was harassed by police, and much more. I don't think all police are dishonest, and I have no fear of police, but I just happen to run across one or two bad apples. Now, when all this started in 1986, things were really different. My girlfriend and I had just broken up, and I was living in our large Victorian home in West Philadelphia. My girlfriend and I had spent several years renovating that building so we could rent it to students from the nearby universities. We were always full, and we charged reasonable rent, and I was an accountant. All this was before the harassment began. Now, I helped as best as I could to contribute to the cost of my girlfriend's medical school, but it was a drop in the bucket compared to the total costs. I did, however, provide food, shelter, and a car. But, nevertheless, I was dumped for one of her classmates in medical school, and I had to buy out her ownership in the house that we own. Now, I did spend about a year sending notes to her to see if she might change her mind and come back, but to no avail. As I said, it didn't work, and as they say, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. But after we broke up, I did not want to rebound. And as I said before, I hate TV. So I enrolled in adult classes at Temple University, and I began my quest to make myself a better person, one course at a time. Now, not all was bliss. It was a very painful experience buying out my girlfriend's interest in our house. And remember, I was being harassed at this time. Well, I did buy out the interest, and I opted to stay in the neighborhood where our friends were and where my business was based. But 100 times more painful. But this ordeal was 100 times more painful when I started getting harassed, and that began about a week after she left the house. As I said earlier, in the beginning, it made me wet my pants. See, one morning I stepped outside my front door to begin my morning run, and a jet circled directly over my head at a low altitude. Then I went a few more blocks, and the same thing happened. A few blocks further again, the same thing happened, but now it's accompanied by sirens. Now, of course, I had seen airplanes and heard sirens before, but it was clear that I was being followed, and by someone powerful enough to control jets. The sirens never stopped, wherever I went in Philadelphia. And there were planes or helicopters coming over at a low altitude wherever I went in Philadelphia or even the suburbs. Honestly, the fear and the stress were enough to drive me or anyone insane, and they did affect me in subtle ways. Now, honestly, if you walked out of your house at 6 a.m. and it happened to you, would you wet your pants? I'll bet you would. I had walked out that door at 6 o'clock hundreds of times before, and there was never any air traffic. But now it happened every day. And whenever the noise follows you wherever you go, it's obvious that someone is following you. And if you don't know what's going on, you feel that it's only a matter of time before your stalker murders you. Think about it. And it also agitates you.